Welcome into the 30 Minutes of Hell podcast. Not because of you, Dane Bradshaw, but just because that's what we named it. Field the 68 Network. Appreciate you for joining me, buddy. How's everything going?
Everything's going great, man. Coming off the holiday season, ready to get back at it, and just like you, ready to get all these non-conference cupcake games out of the way. I've had a lot of those directional schools, on the schedule, that sort of thing. I'm ready. I'm ready for some household names.
Well, a lot of the viewers and people listening now, we got Arkansas fans, SEC hoop fans, and for our Razorback fans out there, Dane, Memphis native, played for the Volunteers, 2003, 2004 to the 06, 07, right?
Yep, you're on it.
I'm on it. The Tennessee Gatorade Player of the Year.
Go on. This list will run short real quick anyway.
He grew an inch.
Care of itself.
As I'm reading, I'm like, so one of the sites had you listed 6'3", and then in college you was 6'4". So you were able to grow in college. Very, very impressive.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
Took you from a point guard to a point forward, that extra inch. And then led the SEC assist to turnover ratio in 06, which we'll get into. You did Razorback games, so we're going to get into all that. Just quickly, though, because I was having the discussion with my brother over Christmas break. The value, like this goes so, people will say like the assist to turnover ratio, and they're like, yeah, okay, very nice. But the truth of the matter is, I was able to play a lot of minutes my freshman year. And it was really one reason, is because I didn't turn it over. And it was like, to be able to be that dependable, it's not about the circus shot playing above the rim. It's, can you make the right pass, son? Don't turn it over, son, so that we can get done what we need to. It's just so many people get caught up, and me and my brother have this conversation about recruiting and how coaches get caught up in the athleticism of the game and forget about the how to play the game the right way. So I'm sure that was something that was going through your mind when you're trying to get minutes for Tennessee.
Hey, yeah, obviously I'm biased to it, but of course I've got to agree with you because look, nobody dreams of going to college and saying, I'm going to lead the conference in assist to turnover ratio, or I want to have the best plus minus, when you come in the game. But you know what? Those things get you minutes. And when, I wasn't as talented of a shooter as you were. I wasn't an exceptional athlete. I could pride myself on outworking guys, but you're right. It's not making many mistakes, being reliable. And so many of these coaches have incredible athletes that have a much higher ceiling than somebody like myself. But did they know what they're going to get game in, game out? And can I put you in the game? Right. And I won't go off on a tangent, but, assist to turnover ratio is just one statistical area you can look at and be like, you know what, that guy's a high IQ player. What it doesn't show you is most likely, hey, he's going to grade out on film almost flawlessly when the coaches watch the game at the end of the game. Was he in the right spot on defense? Did he rotate correctly? Did he get the hockey assist? All those different things that aren't going to show up in the stat book that come with being a high IQ player and dependable. And that's where all of a sudden you look up and you're maybe not the sexiest player out there, and you're not getting all the stats and awards and recognition, but the coaches say, damn, we're better when he's in the game. Right. And it's not just me, but it's for that sort of assist to turnover ratio type thing. And it can become so much harder for players to break through these talented rosters. How do I get some playing time? How can I earn it? And, they get caught up in sometimes the points or the glamorous plays and that sort of thing, when the truth is you get your niche on that team by, being reliable, making the right play, and being where you're supposed to be.
It's funny how, in the analytics of things, like they weren't as, I guess, defined 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even 40 years ago. However, we knew, just like you said, when you're watching a tape, like now all these analytics actually just have numbers behind what we already felt like. Like you could watch a tape and say, Dane makes this team better. Just, we know he does. And then you get dive in the analytics of it. And it's like, oh yeah, well, his plus minus, his defensive rebounds, his different things like that, where I think analytics supports a lot of what we see going on in games.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think some coaches, use it more frequently than others. I remember asking Coach Cal after their blue-white game this year. I was like, are you a big analytics guy? It's like, look, I am, but I like to trust my eyes and my gut. And then I'll look at it after I watch film. Maybe it points out something that I didn't really notice. And so it is good for that too. But as you said, it can validate certain things. And, Coach Will Wade at LSU, I know he uses it a ton to be able to show the players, hey, if you don't believe me, that's fine. Here's where you rank nationally. Green is good. Right. Yellow's average. Red is bad. So, maybe you ought to work on your defensive rebounding percentage because you're at the bottom third in the entire country. So I think there's a lot of great ways to use it. Where I do think at times, coaches would have to answer this themselves. Is it analysis paralysis a little bit too? Mm-hmm. When you're down to 2 minutes left in the game and you've been studying all week on, hey, this is our best lineup. This is our usage rate here and all that stuff. At some point, you also got to just look at the flow of the game and be like, you know what? The analytics aren't going to tell me what I feel like gives us the best chance to win in the next 60 seconds.
I'm glad you said that. And everyone out there, we're going to get to the Hogs this year. We're going to get to the SEC. But I played with a guy, Kareem Reed, who what high school were you at?
I would have been in middle school at that point, but I know Kareem Reed, and I was probably getting your EA Sports
middle
game
school.
And all that stuff. Yeah. I'm an '84 kid. Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay, middle school. But I stayed. Me and him, I think we stayed back like 4 or 5 times. So we were we were older. But with Kareem, he was a guy where he had, and I need to go through the numbers. Actually, I wonder if you can find this other than just watching all the game tape. He might have been a 75% free throw shooter. Under 3 minutes, 4 minutes, he had to be 95%. Mm-hmm. So you look at the numbers and you're like, oh, well, let's follow him. But you know what? He never missed in those situations. Right. That's the gut feeling you talk about with, or let's say you need that one stop. Well, you know who the toughest guy on your team is. You know that guy's going to come up with a defensive rebound or a loose ball. He might have played like, dog crap the whole game, but that's where you have.
But I think it goes, it kind of even further than that. Like let's say even though you're a 3-point specialist, I'll use the opposite for it and just say, all right, hey, Pat Bradley is at his best going right at the mid-range spot on the right wing. And that's the highest percentage shot we know we have in our offense. Yeah, but you know what? Maybe they're taking it away a lot tonight, or maybe you're just off. And it's like, all right, well, forget the percentages. We got to run some other action, down the stretch. And so I think coaches, it's just a balancing act. You use the analytics to help your team, to help you. I think you're quite honestly, I think you're ignorant if you're just like, I don't look at analytics at all. Like, hey, it's a good tool. I'm not saying just fall in love with the computers and all that, but if you're just like, no, we don't look at that at all, I think you're probably missing the boat, because no matter how good you think you are at studying the film, that stuff's going to point some things out that you didn't see with your own eyes or your staff didn't pick up on.
Yeah, it's fun. All right, let's go. You did some Razorback games. Did you do a couple games this year? Or you did one. How many did you?
Did one. Their last one. What was that?
The Hofstra. Was it? You did the Hofstra game.
No.
Elon.
They just beat Hofstra. Elon. Yeah, I was in my mind. I had like a Northwestern, but that was LSU.
Getting them out.
Yeah, I had the Elon game. Elon gave him a little bit of a threat in the first, 15 minutes, and then the Hogs, they took it from there. I tried to. I won't suck up to your fan base, but I tried to do the same on the broadcast. They were struggling with Elon, and they got just kind of a basic. I forget who it was. One of the big men down low got a basic 2-point layup, and the crowd just kind of out of nowhere started really getting into it. As if there was an alley-oop that was just made, but it wasn't. It was a basic play, but the crowd was like, "Hey, these kids need some energy. They're looking ahead to Christmas break. They just came off the Hofstra game. That they need some life." And I thought the crowd was a huge factor in that. And then from that point on, it was all Arkansas.
What from watching the game, and I know sometimes it's kind of tough. There's so many factors. Your opponent, like you said, is it during break? You have the students in the stand. Sometimes that matters. What was your takeaways? What you liked, and some of the things you thought they could improve on?
Well, I thought they did a better job, just being a little bit more selective with their 3-point shooting, because it's difficult. You don't want to sit there and tell guys, "Hey, don't shoot." You don't want to ruin their confidence. But at the same time, you got to say, "Hey, you got to turn a few down, like maybe turn one down, give it up," sort of thing. Because I was a bad 3-point shooter, and it's one of those of like, all right, at some point the coach has to say, "There's a reason you're open." You can't just be like, "But I was open, coach." Yeah, well, you're either going to make it or you're not. But turn them down and try to just be a little bit more selective on that. Chris Likes was just phenomenal in that game.
He gets going. He's tough to stay in front of.
And so aggressive at getting himself to the free throw line. He had, I forget how many, but it was over 10 in that game. I don't think he missed one. So I thought that was a big positive, but I think still, are they going to be as good as last year's team? Look, I didn't think last year's team was going to be as good either at this point in the season, but so I think that's going to be a tough act to follow. JD Note, he seems to starting to find his rhythm from three a little bit. Devo Davis didn't do too much. I laughed at, but he only had 1 point, and at the end of the game, he had a wide open dunk, and he tried to kind of throw like a no look, like crowd pleasing pass or whatever. But I kind of laughed at it. I was like, you know what? To me, that says something about the kid. Like, he only got 1 point. Obviously not pouting. It's not the right play, but at least he was kind of still having fun and looking for his teammate at the end and all that. And I think with a rising star like that, oftentimes you're more concerned about, all right, is he going to have crappy body language that's going to infect the whole team? He's only got 1 point. Is he a distraction? And so, it was a little thing, but I thought, a positive sign for him as a player.
Before we move on, let me tell you guys a little bit about our partners over at BetRivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up for BetRivers yet, now is the time, because they are offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. With their Rush Pay instant approval, withdrawing your winnings is safer, it's more secure, and it's more reliable. Now that basketball season is tipping off, get in on the action at betrivers.com today, or by downloading the BetRivers iOS app. You must be 21 years or older. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And while I got you here, let's talk about the Field of 68 Media Network, where college basketball matters most all year round. This is a digital media and podcast network that we've been building over the course of the last year. We have shows hosted by some of your favorite players covering the program that they love the most. AJ Guyton hosts the House of Hoosier. Eric Devendorf covers Syracuse on the scorer's table. Dan Dickow hosts the Gonzaga Bulldog broadcast. We have Florida's Patrick Young and Duke's Andre Dawkins and North Carolina's Shammond Williams and Michigan's Stu Douglas and Illinois' Deion Thomas. The list goes on and on and on. We have more than 30 shows right now. So hit the links below and check them all out. And while you're at it, make sure that you go check out the Field of 12 Media Network, your home for college football.
I thought Coach Muss got very fortunate And Coach Muss has done a heck of a job. Everybody sort of thought, and he got the reputation as a guy that's going to accept transfers. Well, look at this year's recruiting class. He just knocked it out the park. And I felt like nobody knew really what you had in Devo Davis and Jaylen Williams, two Arkansas kids, sophomores, emerged last year. And I think if those kids are the foundation of what you try to do, because unselfish, you talk about assists, those kids, they want to get it. Like Jaylen Williams is the best passer on that team. He's, in terms of a big man, he's one of the best in the country. I just look at those two guys and I say, if you can have those guys, their mentality, you're going to be okay. You know what I mean? You may not you miss shots, you'll do this, but from a give yourself a chance to win and from a mentality standpoint, they give you what you want to build your team on.
No question. I love, I'll stick with Jaylen Williams there because, I mean, you see, even in his freshman year, he would immediately come in, and I hadn't seen him play in high school, but he comes in and you fall in love with him right away because he just steps in and takes charges. You know, he's always a step ahead. Like you talk about him being a good passer. To start the show, we talked about the assisted turnover, usually high IQ guys. If you can see the floor really well and you're a good passer, oftentimes that means you're probably going to be a pretty smart defender too, because you see things before they happen. And he has that, and he moves his feet extremely well. It did seem like, you know, a lot of his assists earlier in the year were coming when teams wanted to double him. Well, now they have such respect for him as a passer, you're probably going to see teams double him or see teams double less. That's not an insult to him not being able to make a one-on-one play, but they're just like, hey, we'd rather see you back us down the post as opposed to, you know, pick us apart as a passer. So that to me is going to be his next step, to where he's such a pass first type guy. Yeah, if I'm Coach Muss, I'm saying, hey, Jaylen, I know you love the assist, you love the pass. Well, if that's what you love to do most, you got to change your mindset and be score first mentality, so that then the teams have to start doubling you more, and then you can start getting your favorite play to pass. But until then, he gets in the post and he's already kind of looking, and he doesn't realize, wait a minute, I've got a pretty good one-on-one matchup here. Look, let me go to work. So I think that's just another step for him. Yeah,
and there's been times where you mentioned making threes. You don't have to make a bunch of them, but you got to make some. All right, and Cal say we can't miss them all. We don't have to make them all, but you can't.
But I do think, like, to me, if Arkansas's 3-point problem is on both ends of the court, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're not defending it well, and they're not shooting it that well. I think
let me ask
they got a lot better chance at fixing the defense, I think.
Yeah, right. Defending it. So do you think there is a correlation there? Do you think that, or is it just sort of coincidence, random, the inability to make a three, maybe not understanding how, to get open for a three, or the catch and shoot, or just the little nuances that go into getting open for a three, catching and shooting. They don't get it on the defensive end. I don't know. You don't
maybe
have to assess.
Here's what's weird about it. It's like it doesn't make any sense. But because I think that we could break down tape and see, all right, what were short closeouts? What was this? What was that? But I do think there's a confidence that you get on the defensive end when hey, we're a lockdown 3-point defensive team. Now, how the heck does that mean it's going to make the other team miss more? I don't know, but kind of when you're a freshman and you come in the game and it seems like you do a perfect closeout no matter what the guy makes the shot on you. Like it just, I don't know why. And maybe I think some of it can be too, as teams prepare for Arkansas, they're running their half court sets and they're getting their shooting drills up, and it's a point of emphasis for them because they're like, all right, how can we possibly win this game? How could we maybe upset Arkansas? Yeah. And you look at the stats and it's like, hey guys, we're going to get our chances from three today. Be prepared. So I think the other team is already coming in mentally thinking, be ready to catch and stick. And so I think when they have that a little bit of a competitive edge or mental edge, they are even coming into the game, as opposed to, let's say Arkansas had gotten off to a better start this year defending the 3, and they were holding teams to 24%. Well, now all of a sudden, is that opponent coming in thinking,
Right.
boy, we got to be ready. This is going to be where we're going to get them. No, they're going to be like, hey, maybe turn a few down. Let's put our head down, go to the basket. And that's where Arkansas starts, getting their charges and everything else. So I think there's, the same way there's a little bit of a mental confidence on the offense, then I think it can happen on defense too. And the other teams have maybe, can't say smell blood, because they'll overcome it. They'll be fine. But yeah. I do think if I'm a player on that roster, you want to worry about both. But in terms of the controllables, there's no question the defensive three-point issue's got a much better chance of going away than the offense.
So you brought up the mental advantage, and I like that. I believe in that a lot. How have you viewed when you played, and now since you've been commentating in games, the home court advantage, going on the road? What factors do you think make up home court advantage, and how much does it affect the road team and the home team?
I think there's still a big advantage there. And it was starting to die off a little bit when I was playing. I finished in 2007. And so you're starting to see teams be a little bit too friendly with one another before the game. Facebook had just started a little bit. You had so guys were kind of already social media friends. You had the AAU thing. And so it was starting to be a little bit uncomfortable for me, where it was like, no, like you walk in there, you not only hate that university, you hate every player associated with it, and now there's just a lot of, there's a lot of friendly sportsmanship and camaraderie prior to the game that I'm not a big fan of. But all these kids know each other, and that's kind of how it is. Plus you got all these transfers. You can't tell me that, all right, I'm a Tennessee guy. You can't tell me that me going down to Florida for, the swamp for 3 straight years, and my senior year going down there, like, I know what it's like. I know how much I hate them, their fans, yada, yada. Like, you can't simulate that. Like, you can't just get a transfer from Hofstra that comes in and all of a sudden, oh yeah, like he's excited to play Florida, but that hatred,
right.
It's tough to duplicate. So I'm getting off. I'm kind of sidetracked there, but that's I think like the fans are the home court advantage. I think has been obviously positive, but I think you see it more at the schools that you would assume. I mean, Bud Walton Arena, Thompson Bowling, Auburn has become an extremely tough place. Rupp has gotten a little bit, I guess, maybe because of non-conference play, and the crowds haven't been as big because they've wanted to see a little bit tougher scheduling. But that all of a sudden will take care of itself in conference play. And then from there it can kind of be a little bit of a crapshoot, because you go to a place like Ole Miss, where if it's a Wednesday night game, it's tough for them to draw all their alumni, as opposed to a Saturday game at noon. And so there's some places like that there's those variables as opposed to Knoxville that's within, the city limits there and can draw Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 9 p.m., noon, whatever you want. So, but I do think that it can also have the opposite effect. When I was playing, I'll ask you this too, but Auburn was the worst arena and lack of home court advantage, but it would kind of be used against us. We'd go down there and all of a sudden you're sleepwalking in the games, because it's like, man, this feels like a scrimmage, or like, does anybody care about this game? And I don't know, what was the worst place you played where you were like, golly, like this home court advantage is so bad it's actually working against us?
So first I'll say that when we played at Tennessee, this was 96, Steve Hamer.
Oh my God. Yeah.
They didn't even bother to turn all the lights on in Thompson Bowling, okay? They didn't even bother, okay? Because it was 96. It was before Coach Jerry Green and Tony Harris and Brandon Wharton. Those guys, great players. We had And it just seemed like 98, everything just switched, man.
So you were Kevin O'Neal, I guess. Was it O'Neal that you were?
That was,
or DeVoe?
Yeah, 07. So yeah, 96 to 95, 96, my freshman year to 98, 99. I love Kevin O'Neal. But so you had that feeling like, yeah, it wasn't quite the same. But I will say this about Auburn. We go there one year, and this was when Cliff Ellis was there. And they had the fans, they call them the Cliff Dwellers. And we're in layup line, and they were right on the court. Like, that's the one thing that I appreciated. Even like Florida, they're like right on top of you. I mean, they breathe on. And we were in our layup lines, and the students are going crazy. They got nothing else to do. So I got the rebound in the layup line and went to pass it, and there was an Auburn student that had gotten in our layup line that was ready to catch it and take a layup. So it's just it was a lot of fun. But Auburn, yeah, you could get that, and it's loud now. But Tennessee became one of the difficult places to play. The things that they would say, and I will attribute this to the students, was some of the most vile things that you can say to a human being. It was unbelievable. Because they used to sit under the
not us.
like
no
right
way.
behind
Not us.
The rim. It was bad stuff.
Well, see, like, and that's where Florida was the toughest place from that standpoint. I embraced it. I thought it was funny. They were creative. But they before they renovated the O'Connell Center, they had they had I take that back. They still had the fans right behind like your row, the players' bench. Now it wasn't students, but it was still some hecklers where it was like it was just a fight waiting to happen. I don't know how there wasn't because you were just within swinging distance. But the fans there were right there on the court. They could say all types of things. You could hear everything, and it's a little bit harder to heckle somebody if you're like 20 rows up. Like Thompson Bowling Arena right now, it's one of my issues with it is the student section's behind the goal. And if I'm trying to heckle Pat Bradley, like it's a little bit awkward to scream all the way down there. I don't even know if he's going to hear it. He's not like he's got to put binoculars on to even see me. So it's but the closer they are and the more creative, the better. But nowadays, I mean, some of the things that were said to me and chanted, like those if that was done today, they'd get expelled and never be accepted into any university ever again. So
couple more things and I'll let you head out. When you look at the SEC, we've talking 7 teams in the tourney. Where have you landed and of what you expect in making the tournament?
Yeah, I'm good with 7. LSU, I think LSU is a top 25 team, and I think they are legit defensively. I'm not ready to, say that they're a top 10 type team in the country. I mean, their schedule hasn't been quite as challenging as some of the others because that's where I give Alabama, Tennessee, and others that have had a few lumps along the way. Well, yeah, you're going to have that when you're scheduling extremely tough. So, the sky's not falling there at all. I'll be curious. I'm anxious to see if Florida can hang on. Florida was, really riding high after Thanksgiving. They won that tournament. And then, they faltered a little bit since then because they got a lot of mid-major guys. And that's what you love about them is they got chip on their shoulder type guys. But then sometimes that natural talent can get exposed a little bit too. So I'm curious to see how they end up. And then Mississippi State's probably the one that's that 7th team I think we're all kind of expecting to kind of bust through. But outside of that, I don't know, man. You follow it even closer than I do. So it's there have been a few bumps along the way in non-conference and for the Ole Misses of the world and others. But the good news is there's so many quality win opportunities to be had in the SEC.
I was looking at Arkansas right now as we sit is 0-1 in quad 1 games. And I was talking with somebody last night. I said, don't worry. Do you know how many opportunities like they're going to get for the quad, the net rankings now for those who know the quad 1, quad 2, quad 3, quad 4. So yeah, the good news is for any fan base, you will have plenty of opportunities to build up your resume.
And I think for the SEC, it's not always just about how many teams can you get in, but how well can you get a seed for them. And I think it's very realistic to think you got 5 teams that'll be a 5 or less seed, right? I mean, LSU, I think at worst would end up being a 5 seed. Auburn, Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama. So I think all those schools, I don't see a 1 seed unless somebody just did complete damage to the SEC. But I think you could get a couple 3s and some 4s and 5s, and I think they
and it's matchups at that point.
Yeah,
right. Just great. What was Auburn a couple years ago? Were they were a 5 when they went to the Final Four? Yeah,
and they had to go through Murderers Row. I mean, they beat Kentucky,
they
UNC. Kentucky to go to the Final Four, but they barely won their first round game. It was out west, and then they end up beating Kansas and UNC along the way. It was all the Blue Bloods.
Yeah. My brother, I appreciate you, man.
You got it. Anything else I can do for you? This is gonna be fun. I'll be talking to you in studio and on the games. So
let's do it, and then let's get back maybe in a few weeks when we're in SEC play. We'll get a little bit more info and intel on these teams and figure out a little bit more stuff.
Hey, your Hogs have a pretty favorable schedule in January in SEC play. I mean, they got some growing up to do, obviously, but I like the way the schedule allows for that. So I've got them at home against Vandy here in this, I guess, January 4th. So
they need that. That's when last year they sort of came into their own. It was sort of mid-January. And they were able to figure things out and really just ride that wave. So it'd be that they couldn't have asked for a better.
They're one of a few schools that they can get maybe 2 or 3 more wins just because their home crowd was so good. I mean, that gives you a +6 or whatever it is. And there's one of a few schools like Kentucky that, you know what, maybe we weren't the better team today, but our crowd pulled us through it. You could see that, being sort of a tiebreaker down the stretch. So good luck to your guys, man. Thanks for letting me come on.
I appreciate it, man. Be safe. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right, later.